I don't know about you guys, but the quarantine was not ideal for my eating and my physique when we first got locked down. I took it as a way to pity myself, feel bad. Obviously the whole world is going through this, but I took it as, hey, no, it's only me. We're all gonna die, so I might as well eat cookies, Chipotle, and pizza. And then you realize, okay, we're gonna make it through this. It's gonna take some time, but we're gonna make it through. Let me not eat like an asshole forever. And luckily, I'm married to someone who constantly reminds me that I'm eating like an asshole, won't have sex with me if I don't look my very best. That's something I need a therapist about, but also runs a pretty phenomenal nutrition company with Own Your Eating. And she's put together, that is Roz, my wife, some great challenges that you guys can check out. If you're like me, like you said, and you need a little extra accountability, you need a kick in the ass, you want to just learn a little more, you want to do something really cool at your box, at your gym, at your affiliate, you should check these out. So if you go over to SugarWad in the marketplace, we've got the Own Your Eating store in there, and there's 3 different challenges you can check out. If you're a box owner, I highly recommend you check out the Gym Nutrition Challenge. I think it's only like $169, something like that. And the cool thing about it is, if you're a box owner, you can give this to your members as a way to just, hey, I'm giving you a bonus. I'm giving you something. We appreciate that you stuck with us during the quarantine. We appreciate that you kept your membership active, or you can even make money. She's had a few gyms that have done really well at $169. You get 20 people signed up at $20, you've made over $200. So check out the 30-day transformation challenge for gyms. That's a specific one for box owners. And then we've got ones for individuals, the 30-day transformation challenge, as well as the 30-day get lean challenge. And with both of those, you're going to get programming, you're going to get daily information, daily accountability, and so much more. The transformation challenge is really for those that are either new to tracking macros and flexible eating, or maybe you've done it in the past and you want to get dialed back in like I needed. And of course, accountability goes a long way. It's something I preach as far as a coach. I have coaches for many aspects of my life, and the primary reason is I just need that accountability. Hey, did you do what I told you to do? Hey, don't forget you said you do this, right? It's just a reminder in the back of my head when I'm about to mess up that I got someone out there that's relying on me doing well and going to remind me about it. And then there's the 30-day get lean. This is more for the experienced people. Maybe you've tracked macros in the past, you have a good understanding of nutrition, but you're ready to take it to the next level. Maybe you've plateaued, you're ready for reverse dieting, or you just need some extra coaching out there. So you can check these all out on SugarWad. The link is in the show notes. But if you go to SugarWad, you go to the marketplace, you look up Own Your Eating, you're going to see these options. And the cool thing is you can use the code BESTHOUR. You can use the code BESTHOUR and you'll get 10% off any of the options there. So BESTHOUR. The code BESTHOUR will get you 10% off in the SugarWad marketplace. Check it out. Own Your Eating. Roz's 3 challenges, and she's seen tremendous results. And trust me, if you're working with Roz, I'm going to hear about it. She'll ask me for some feedback as well. So you really get 2 coaches for the price of 1. Check it out. Use the code BESTHOUR for 10% off.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Best Hour of Their Day. Ackerman, Fern, with our good friend, also big-time podcaster at this point, Patrick Cummings.
Big time. He's
big
got
time.
like 12 podcasts, Pat?
only 3.
3?
Come on now. Come on, Jay. Don't you have 3?
I think we have more than 3 somewhere, yeah. I don't know.
But so you do several different podcasts, right, Patrick?
Yep. Yeah. So I have one long-standing one with Ben Bergeron, Chasing Excellence. Been doing that for 3 or 4 years now. I've got one through the Morning Chalk Up called Open Gym. And then I've got a new one with EC Synkowski, who I'm sure you guys know and love, called The Consistency Project, where we kind of pick her brain about her thoughts and beliefs around nutrition.
How long has that been up and running?
2 months, maybe. We're probably only like 5 or 6 episodes in, so super new still.
It's recent because I remember seeing it and I was like, hey, see, you want some unsolicited advice? I was like, you need to change your name to like some 800 grams, because she's so well known for that.
Yeah.
I was like, it's kind of a little, but she clearly didn't listen to me. Not surprising, but I'm sure she'll be successful either way.
The reason is
that trend continues from some of our staff.
Yeah, Jay, the reason is because we want to be able to stretch out a little bit beyond just the nutrition talk. So we didn't want to limit ourselves by just focusing narrowly on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, both of you can certainly do that well. So that's basically what she said. And like I said, it was unsolicited, but I just, I think she's got a great stuff to put out there. So that was my way of helping her ideally reach a broader audience.
Yep. Totally.
So a lot of people kind of probably know your voice from the podcast, but you've also done quite a bit of voiceover for some videos that are been featured on .com as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for a long. So just the very, very fast bio is I helped start Again Faster in 2006, 2007. And a big part of those early days was me going around to seminars, to the games, to various things happening, and shooting videos. That was my background. That was what I did for a long time, both for CrossFit HQ and for Again Faster. Because at that time, I'm sure you guys remember, there was like 2 people shooting videos, and so they needed more humans to make videos. And so I've done a bunch of games focused things. I've done some community focused things, but yeah.
Pat, did you film the roundtable discussion?
Yeah.
I still get asked about that. That must have been,
those things are still bouncing around.
10 plus years ago.
Yep.
And to this day, once in a while, like someone will randomly come up to me and just be like, where do I know you from? And then they'll figure that out.
That's really funny. That's actually a big inspiration for why I wanted to start, or what I started with Open Gym, because I thought that was such a valuable exercise and a valuable way to get some information out, is just to let people who are kind of in the trenches talk about it. And so that was definitely a big reason why, or big inspiration for me to start Open Gym, because I felt like I wanted to see more of that out in the world.
Imagine if we redid that now, it'd be such a different discussion.
Oh, it'd be a lot of fun. We should redo that. Maybe we should definitely figure that out. We should do something like that.
That would be awesome.
Between the 3 of us, and we'll grab a couple other people.
That would be awesome, actually.
Yeah.
A little virtual version of it, like you see all these celebrities doing Zoom, reenactments of things online. We could do, a virtual roundtable. That'd be okay. I'll add it to our growing list for.
That
which
list
is Jay's way of saying somebody else take care of this.
That is exactly what he's saying. Like, you're not even mincing words about it. Because Jay's super skill is delegation. Yes. Delegation.
Delegation and ignorance. So they go hand in hand.
But the reason we wanted to chat, and the reason I DM'd you, Patrick, is because you had posted something maybe like a week ago, roughly.
It was I think the day or 2 days after the Eric Roza announcement. So
got it. Okay, so a little bit longer than that.
Maybe that's a couple weeks now.
Yeah. June 25th date's on here. Okay, got it. So it was almost a month ago. Okay, cool. So I have no concept of time and COVID days. But I was reading through it and I was like, these are some very thought-provoking questions, and there's 20 of them.
Yeah.
And so my first question is, how long did you spend? Because this isn't something you just jotted on a napkin in 5 minutes.
Yeah. So a little bit of background. So I have a project called Functional Branding. And part of that is, and what I do is I'm a brand coach for gym owners, coaches, entrepreneurs, et cetera. And so part of that is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I just send out a short blog post about leadership, about making change, about branding. And so I'm already in I'm always kind of in the practice and process of thinking about, okay, what am I going to write about next week? What am I going to write about tomorrow? And so that's where this started. And honestly, it probably started, I started formulating questions a day or so after Eric and Castro did that little 20-minute Zoom thing. Because I didn't know Eric at all. So I was just super curious. And once I got a little bit of a sense of him, I got a little bit of a sense of his background, I just kind of naturally started thinking in questions, which is what I try to do anyways. And so it probably took me like 2 days to kind of start to loosely formulate things. And then I just kind of put them together in a morning and then posted them that day.
Yeah. And we're not going to go through all of them because that would take a really long time, because each one of them is like I said, very thought provoking, but, and there's 20 of them, but
I'm super curious to see which ones like you feel like pop out at you, because that'll be fun for me.
So there's definitely a couple in here which I think are, and I like the fact that they're thought provoking, but they're also very head on questions. Like you're not like beating around the bush in some of these, which I think is fantastic. But what's your general feelings about current state of CrossFit moving forward? Is it positive? Is it neutral? You don't know, or you're like, this is going to be terrible. The world's going to end.
No, I'm not there. It's interesting. I don't know Eric. I don't know if you guys know him at all. I've never talked to him, but I do have the luxury of knowing Ben pretty well. And Ben Ben Bergeron has had a chance to have a number of conversations now with Eric. Or again, a number that's maybe it's 2 or 3. It's only been a month. But Ben is very hopeful, and Ben is very positive, and Ben feels like this was maybe a rocky way to get to where we're going, but ultimately going to be a good thing. And absent any more information than what I've seen, and then what I can kind of guess at, I can't help but be at least positively optimistic about what's gonna come. And most of that is just because Ben is, and I trust Ben to have a good sense of these things.
Yeah, I feel the same way just based on what I know, and Jay and I have the fortune of like being in the machine for a while. And a lot of things that we see, we're just like, okay, I see how that could be super beneficial. And I see the light at the end of the tunnel that other people may not necessarily kind of understand yet. I do think it's worth noting that we're probably not going to see anything drastic for a couple months, maybe like not even until the end of the year, because we were chatting right before we hit record, and they are undergoing, so Eric and his team, a pretty extensive, and this is secondhand information from a lot of people that have been pretty closely involved with that, a pretty massive gathering of information, just kind of like fact finding, just like searching and sifting so that they can make, I think, good decisions moving forward, which is already a good sign, not coming in and just like knocking everything down and say, we're going to rebuild it. I can appreciate that slow, methodical approach to coming in and taking over something that quite frankly is very emotional. So
and you've got to remember that this happened in like 2 weeks. There's no way that no way that Eric, even in his like when he's on vacation imagining what life could be like, there's no way he went as deep as he needs to do now to really figure out what is this thing, what's broken that needs to be fixed, what is being ignored that we can now pay attention to, all this stuff. Like there's no way he could have been really prepared for it. And so if you think about like even just a gym, if you just think about in 2 weeks, you're in charge of the gym. Okay, how long is it going to take you to figure out where, like, what's broken and what do I need to fix? Where are the fires and where are the opportunities? That just takes time. And something as big and with as many stakeholders as CrossFit HQ has, I don't think we're going to see anything until next year before we get a really good sense of what his vision is going to be for it.
Well, and I think this would be a insane time outside of a pandemic, but then we have to factor in, all of this was hasty, like you said, Pat. It was like a tweet, explosion, new owner, and all of this was amidst the pandemic, where now we're seeing states shutting back down, and there's certainly, there has to be an impact of that on HQ. But I think from what I saw with Coach Glassman, we were at the ceiling. I mean, he took us as far as he could take us as a leader. And unless he underwent some extensive leadership training or decided to, hey, I'm going to let somebody else either run this ship or run the health initiative, we were going to be stifled. And I think that's what's exciting about Eric. It's like we're reinvigorated. It's like, I'm sure no different than the world feels or the country feels when a new election happens. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
so I think it's actually a good spot to like dive in. And actually, like, I thought your first question, because of the nature of the question, is a good one to start. And I'll go ahead and read it. And it's the 5 pillars of CrossFit HQ have been training, affiliation, games, advocacy, and health. In what order of priority will these fall going forward? How will you determine those priorities? By growth potential, by historic revenue, by reach, or by some other metric? And that one I think is important because of something you mentioned already, Patrick, was because there are so many stakeholders. And if you do this incorrectly, people are going to feel slighted, which is not going to help. So I'm curious what your thoughts are as far as, and I don't necessarily the answers, but like, where do you think he's going to put his focus, maybe even in short, medium, and long term?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that there's little question to me that he is going to lean heavier into the games. in a way that Greg was obviously trying to go far away from. And so it'll be interesting to see what he considers, really what he considers the top of the funnel, for a lack of a better way to look at it. Like, what is he? And really it comes down to, like, I mean, all of these questions really come down to, what is the vision you have for this thing? Where are you trying to get it to? Because ultimately that dictates then everything else that comes after it. And so my sense of it is, I think he's given the little bit I know about him, given the little bit I know of what's been going on the last couple of weeks, he's not somebody who thinks small, right? I think he sold his company to Oracle for like $1 billion or something absurd.
Yeah, 1.2.
You don't do that by accident, right? And so you don't do that without massive aspirations. You don't do that without the guts to say, we're trying to build $1 billion company, right? Like, that doesn't happen by accident. So I imagine he's going to be taking the same attitude to CrossFit as he did anything and everything he did prior to this. And so what does that mean? I don't know specifically, but I do know that it means making a much, much, much bigger pie than we're all currently looking at, right? And so I don't know, what do we want to guess in terms of number of CrossFitters? 2 to 5 million? What's he talking about now? 10, 20, 100 million people doing CrossFit? I don't know, but that dictates, if the number, let's just, for the sake of conversation, 100 million people doing CrossFit, what is the entry point for that number of people doing it? I'm not sure, but I think it's probably not advocacy. It's probably not health. It's probably the games, if I had to guess.
I think it's the games and some combination of a digital platform app, like kind of like a Peloton with some other aspect to it.
Yeah,
because it's the widest net that you could cast.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely, the games has to be the top of the funnel.
Yeah.
And going back to what I said, it's like Glassman was so far into advocacy and health and so against the games that's, I believe, why we were going to be limited there. And I don't think you should ignore those two things. I think it's important what Coach Glassman was doing, but like you said, Pat, the games is the top of the funnel. If you want, the analogy would be like the UFC.
Yep.
Right. I mean, 99% of the people you see training any sort of martial arts are doing it because they watched something on ESPN, on pay-per-view at their buddy's house. And it's going to be the same thing with the games. It's why we saw the surge in 2010, 2011.
Yep.
And that was almost accidental.
Yep.
I think
it's an important distinction to make. And it's something that I've never really seen anybody make it, but I've felt it and believed it for a number of years now, which is that CrossFit HQ was never meant to be a business. It was meant to be the articulation of Greg Glassman's arguments. Mm-hmm. And it just so happens that he managed to kind of stumble and react to his way to a rather profitable business. But if you look at it through the lens of this entire organization, the structure of this organization is meant to allow Greg Glassman to fight the people he wants to fight, the arguments that he wants to win. And that's why, Jay, to your point, that's why we hit a ceiling, because it was never meant to be anything more than a platform by which Greg can pursue what ultimately became CrossFit Health, but really was what it was the whole time. And that's why they had to go away from CrossFit Games, because that was too shiny an object in order to have the argument to make the case that he was trying to make. And now I think that's not going to be the case for CrossFit anymore. I don't think that that's what CrossFit HQ's vision is going to be. I don't think that's what Eric wants. I think that if the downstream effects looks similar or looks like what Greg Glassman was trying to get to with the health, great, awesome. I don't know that that's the point of it. I don't know that that's going to be the point of it going forward.
So let me ask you a follow-up on that, Pat, and Fern chime in, because I agree with you 100% on that, Pat. And I don't think they have to be, exclusive of one another. But my hypothesis would be, if we push the games, all of that health stuff happens.
Yep.
Because all of a sudden people are doing functional movements, constantly varied, high intensity. All of a sudden they walk into boxes and they're being told to eat meats, vegetables, nuts, seeds. So certainly we have a big fight against soda and, the government and all those food things, but you're accidentally creating a healthier world, which may take a generation to kick in versus instant. but it's also going to, in my opinion, be longer lasting.
Yeah, that's certainly the case that Eric's going to make. I think that's the case that anybody's going to make about the value of the CrossFit Games as it relates to the downstream effects, the affiliate ends of it. And the question really then becomes, is that actually going to happen? Is that actually true? Because you guys know as well as I do that not all, but some of the hurdles, some of the barriers, some of the challenges that every affiliate has is fighting against the perception that what they do is the CrossFit Games or some version of the CrossFit Games. Now, it's not been a hurdle or a barrier that has been insurmountable. Obviously, quite a number of gyms have been able to figure out how to do it, not been able to build and grow thriving communities. But I do think that is the biggest hurdle. If you want to make both of those things work and grow and thrive equally, you've got to figure out a way to make both of those things possible. And I think that's been the biggest barrier. And quite frankly, I think that one of the things that Eric can do is to lead the affiliates in a way that Greg never was interested in. Mm-hmm. We all know Greg. Yeah. And like, you're not like the SME certifications or seminars, you're not allowed to talk about business. Yeah. That obviously comes straight from Greg. Right. And so, again, is that one of the things that Eric will knock down? And now suddenly maybe affiliates will start getting quite a bit more support, whether that's in digital marketing, whether that's in, best practices and this, that, and the other thing, whether that's, who knows what it could be. But up until now, there's been nothing. And so everybody's been their own kind of independent little lifeboat, trying to figure out how to do this thing on their own to a large degree. And that's why your podcast is awesome. And that's why what I'm trying to do with Open Gym, and to a large degree, what I'm trying to do with functional branding is bring some of that knowledge, some of those best practices to the table, because it's been absent for affiliates for a long time. And so
for all time.
Yeah.
Well,
for all time. Yeah.
I would say there's a period of time in 08, 09 where affiliates were just doing, like, that's probably about when, the roundtable happened. Mm-hmm. I remember going to New Jersey and meeting with Jen Marshall, and Dennis and Greg Arsenic, the owner of Montclair at the time.
I remember him. Yep.
We used to all sit around and talk about these things. And I think it was like, the analogy of like your band, like your favorite band. It's like, hey, we've got this small little group that, follows this little band, and all of a sudden now they're playing, theaters and stadiums. Yep. This group is too big to have those discussions, but we're not. We just need to, you need to gather the right people to have them, and no different than what we're discussing, it'll trickle down.
Yep. Agreed.
That's actually go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the big question for me in those 5 pillars that I put out is the advocacy part of it. And I think that's really the place that, I think to me, that was the biggest strategic error that Greg made, in the sense of, it was so important to him. And I might forget it, but you guys might remember it. Something he referred to as like the 3 L's, and it was like litigation, lobbying, and something else. What was the other L?
Oh, I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
But my point is, he was putting so many resources, so much attention, so much effort into this advocacy part. And there was this giant gulf between that and the affiliates understanding what the hell the point of that was. And I think that was one of the biggest strategic mistakes, is that he never made the connections for people about why it was so important that he had, 50 lawyers on staff and 30 lobbyists in DC. It's not that it wasn't important. It was that he trusted and he assumed, I think, that people just was like, yeah, Greg's just doing his thing and it makes sense, and I'm not going to worry about it.
I think probably his fatal flaw would have been like the visionary that he was, with the inability to cast the vision to everybody else. It's just like people just blindly followed him. And I think, to go even a step further, when we're talking about that gap between where he's going and where the affiliates exist, and we all have the good fortune of hindsight. Yep. And you probably wouldn't know until you made the mistake, but maybe misgauging how large and what the scope of CrossFit needed to be in order to actually chase that aim. Yeah. And he undershot, because it probably needed to be in the billions before you could really start getting a footprint and start making that impactful kind of global impact, like in the way that he wanted it to. We'd agree CrossFit has a global impact, but I think there was just like, you don't know what you don't know. And when you're doing something like that, you couldn't possibly fathom how large it would actually need to be in order to facilitate that.
To really push that boulder up the hill.
Yeah.
And probably a touch of ego.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
But I think that's actually leads into a good, yeah, right. Especially that guy. But I think that leads into the next piece, which is questions 5 and 6, which are both actually around kind of like the digital kind of marketing space. So CrossFit has always shunned traditional marketing, digital and otherwise, to some degree. That seems to be part of your background. How much do you imagine bring that into the operations going forward? And then in the short term, toward that aims, will those marketing dollars go toward getting more people in CrossFit gyms or in the gyms, toward fixing CrossFit brand, toward raising attendance of seminars or someplace else? And I actually wrote Eric an email kind of about this, which is that seeming tension that exists between the games and the affiliates, I think is actually a facade. I don't actually think it exists. It's kind of like, I think it's very similar to if you think back to the level 1 and we talked about the technique lecture, and there's this misunderstanding that technique and intensity are at odds. They're not. They actually feed each other if you understand how they work. And I think the games and the affiliates are synonymous with that analogy. And I think if you understand that, like, we can use both of these, the games is the marketing arm, and then attached to that, all we need to do is tell good stories about all of the amazing stuff that's happening in affiliates every day. That's what I think, and that's what we've failed to do moving forward. There was a very short time frame, and I think it was like 16, where we could see that happening, and there was a lot of marketing at the games going in, talking about affiliates and just the regularity of people, and then overnight it was gone.
That was right around the time there was that commercial with, I think it was Eric Preston in it. Was that Eric Preston? It was like, I'll tell you what CrossFit is. That commercial?
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great analogy, by the way, Fern.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree on your point. I think that in practice it fell apart. And I think a big part of that is because, and this isn't a criticism, this is why I think we all love the affiliate community and the people who are in it. But most people don't open gyms with a really good sense of branding, with a really good sense of marketing, with a really good sense of—
that's the understatement of the decade.
Yeah, of best practices, even to the degree of on the financial end. And so when that is the case, people come in and they say, I'm going to stake my livelihood on this idea, on this brand. And then they're not really given the resources they're not given the resources that they lack, and they're left to figure it out to a large degree on their own. And again, to go back what I said, Greg was never interested in helping an affiliate run their affiliate better. He was in love with helping trainers train better, but we know that those are two different, both equally important elements of running a gym. Right? I have sort of 4 pillars that I think about when I work with gyms, and when I think about gyms. One of them is the branding, which is obvious. That's kind of why I do partly why I do what I do. The other is the operations, in which I would include the training and the best practices and the class management and all that stuff. The third is the financial end of it, which is a struggle for a lot of people for whatever reason, right? They just don't want to do it. They don't like it. And then the fourth for me is the individual at the heart of that gym, at the heart of that brand. If you own the gym, it is up to you to continue to get better across all 3 of those other pillars, so that you're never the weak link, which I think happens. It's a shitty cycle, but that happens when you're too busy trying to fix leaks in the ship, because you don't totally know what you're doing or why you're doing it, or you heard Ben Bergeron say a thing and now suddenly you're going to do something for 3 months when you don't really understand the principles behind it, or how it connects to what you're already trying to do. And so to me, those are the 4 most important parts, and only one of them was ever given any guidance by CrossFit. And so you're left with all these people. And I think that that's where back to what I said about the disconnect between the advocacy and the health and the affiliates is like, that's great, but that feels like that feels like the extremity, if we're talking about quarter extremity, right? Like, I need help figuring out how I'm going to be open in 6 months. I don't know why you have 10 lobbyists in DC. I don't know how to connect those two things. And I think that's been a big part of the gap. And I think hopefully maybe is one of those things that can be closed going forward.
I think that's a great analogy as well,
yeah.
Pat, kind of talking about quarter extremity. It's like,
yeah.
Hey, you're worried about your fingers and releasing your hook grip.
Yep.
When you're not even opening your hips.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other one that I thought was interesting was number 11, and because this is one, it's just an interesting thought experiment. I don't know that you could ever quantify this one or actually come up with an answer, but it is, what obvious to you, and this is interesting because it depends on the lens that you're looking through for this one. It's like, what obvious to you opportunities has CrossFit HQ missed in the year since you started paying attention to it? This is interesting for a couple of reasons, because of his background, where he comes from, which is the digital marketing space, but also because he's owned an affiliate for 10 years. So he has a very interesting, probably very unique lens with which to view that through. I have my own personal guesses about what his opportunities would look like, but I'd be curious to see what you think.
Yeah, I think the most obvious is, and I wrote about this separately, I think last week, is getting into the digital fitness at home space, right? The Peloton of CrossFit, or, the CrossFit of CrossFit, right? You look at, it's amplified by the times we're living in, right? If you look at what's happening now with COVID, what you really have to understand to get at least the beginning of a sense of it is that what it's doing is it's accelerating us 5 to 10 years into the future. It's forcing us to go into the future far before we were ever going to, collectively on our own. And so I don't think there's any question. You look at the stock price in Peloton, I don't know what it is, but I know it's been up. It's gone up since all this happened.
I have a Peloton in the room next door.
Yeah.
That we got during
and I think
COVID.
people are appreciating that that's a possibility, and they're appreciating how good Peloton is at doing what they're doing. Lululemon just bought Mirror for $500 million, which is, I don't totally know what that is. It looks a little funky to me, but it's basically this idea of working out through empowered by digital technology. I think I've got a friend who works at a company called Hydro, which is trying to do what Peloton is doing, but for a rower or on a rower.
Are you talking about John?
Yes, sir. John Gilson's there. And so there's no question to me that somebody is going to figure out what a CrossFit version of that looks like. And I believe, back to that idea of the top of the funnel, I believe that the right order of events should be, or could be, games is the biggest halo. It filters down to, hey, would you like to do something similar to what the games athletes are doing? You get this beautifully delivered, beautifully produced product or service where games athletes and seminar staff are leading classes or leading live and on-demand classes. And it says through that, because it's easy to do at this point, is I have all of your information now. I know exactly where you live. Hey, would you like to take this to the next level? We've got 3 affiliates within 20 minutes of you, stocked with world-class coaches that can help you take this to the next level, to help you personalize this, to help you include, to help you tackle your nutrition challenges and all that stuff. So to me, there's a natural feeder system from the sexiness of the games to the convenience and the cost savings of doing it at home to the efficacy of doing it in an affiliate. And to me, that's where I think the biggest opportunity is having ignored digital marketing, digital tech, digital, almost everything from the beginning. That to me is the biggest opportunity that has been missed or ignored or not given, not cared about.
I agree. I think if we were on top of that, we would have something right now. It wouldn't be, like you said, the Peloton of CrossFit. It would be, the CrossFit of CrossFit.
Right. Yeah.
I get
that's also why I find that so exciting, is because we're talking about CrossFit and, we don't know what he sold it for, but it wasn't pennies. And It's one of the most recognizable brands on planet Earth, regardless of how you feel about it or whatever. Like, people kind of, when you see somebody doing a workout, like, people will come to the reasonable conclusion that is CrossFit.
Yep.
And that's what I find. I mean, and we've gotten there with zero, and I mean zero, negative digital footprint, which is, quite frankly, mind-blowing. You're like, how does that even happen? Like, how do you get to a level like this, putting zero resources and money into the digital ad marketing awareness space? It is just mind numbing to think about that. That's why I find that so compelling, and I find it so exciting, because I'm like, even if you did it terribly, it would yield.
Yeah, and he's
because
not going to do
CrossFit
it
or what it is,
Yeah, he's not going to do it terribly.
No, of course not.
But Pat, my follow-up would be, what's the motivation, assuming it's Eric and not just, somebody else creates it, what's the motivation to send those people to the affiliate versus paying, I think we pay like $40 a month for the platform, and I know people are in this, typically they were in the studio in New York or London or wherever, but aren't you then going to remove that, monthly payment? I get it. You're benefiting the affiliates, but they're paying $3,000 regardless.
Yep. I think that's a really good question. And that's one of the things that, back to this importance of communicating clearly from the top. They'll have to make sure they communicate that. But for me, the reason why that's not counter to me is a couple of reasons. One, not everybody wants to go to a CrossFit gym. That's okay. That's part of building a good brand, is to recognize that you are actually not for most people. And so most affiliates have to recognize you're actually not for the guy who only wants to work out in his basement. He's not your jam. You shouldn't be chasing him. You shouldn't be thinking about him. You shouldn't be bummed that he's not coming in. He just doesn't want what you have. He doesn't believe what you need him to believe. So that's part of it. Is like, that's fine. There's a whole lot of people who could use CrossFit who are never going to walk into a CrossFit gym because it's too expensive, because they think they're too busy, because they're not interested, whatever reason it is. We can start to capture some of those people and start to introduce them to the efficacy of the methodology. And I think that is a boon in and of itself. I think the other thing is something happens when, so we all know this implicitly, especially in the gym environment, but a CrossFit gym, by virtue of being a CrossFit gym, it is, while it's specific, it is to a degree rather broad, right? When you come to be a member of an affiliate, if you're just paying for unlimited classes every month, I can't make that super specific for you, right? It has to be relatively broad. It has to be relatively broad, at least for the community that we have. But I am, as a member, theoretically, I am willing to pay you more money for a more personalized service. And that doesn't mean I have to go to PT. That doesn't mean I get out of the CrossFit class. But it just simply means I get the CrossFit class, and then I get some personalization on top of that. So maybe that's nutrition, maybe that's greater accountability, maybe that's some mindset training, maybe that's a broader look at health, maybe that's movement specific stuff, like every month you meet with your coach and you go over the squat snatch for 2 hours a month or something like that. If you can set up a service where you're inviting people in to a wider funnel, right? And so the group class is the widest part of the funnel there. That's great. And then you're building services that build on top of that, where you're willing, for some people who are willing to pay a little bit more and a little bit more, you can continue to offer them more personalization, to the point where you can have literally a personal coach who's going to text you, email you, call you, going to work with you on this journey that you're on. And I think that the digital space, it just adds another layer to that funnel, in that, like, I've never done Peloton. I have a sense of it, but it's not a workout for you, Jay. It's a workout for anybody and everybody who signs on to that class, right? It's not like, here's what you need, Jay. Here, we're going to work on this together.
Yeah, agreed. But you do get that sense of, and it's probably my CrossFit education and knowledge, where I look at the numbers and I'm so competitive, but only with myself, unless MDV, right?
Yeah, of course.
He and I text often about it. He
awesome
crushes it somehow. And so we can compete against each other. But and what I'm thinking is, as you're saying this, and I don't want to give other people these ideas, but really it would be, all right, it's $40 a month, unlimited classes, etc. Pay through this app $200, and we're going to kick it back to your coach, who, by the way, we'll find for you. Now HQ or whoever creates this is benefiting, but trickling it down. So somebody's in Boulder and they're like, I do want that. Cool. Well, we have Jason Ackerman. He's a level 4 coach. Pay us, because it's like iTunes. It's like fake money, basically. Double click your phone and you've spent $200,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they shoot that 100 of it to me.
That's 100%. That's actually a really good point that I hadn't thought of. But the way to get to real scale, and you look at anything, mostly when we think about it in the terms of social networks. But if you really want to get to like hyper scale, what you do is you build a platform, and a platform is something on top of which somebody else can make money. And when you do that, you have this massive population of people for whom it makes sense for them to help you grow the platform, right? Facebook works because there are these thousands and thousands and thousands of small and large businesses who are reliant on them to continue growing and getting more people and getting more attention, because that's how they get more customers, right? And so if CrossFit built this platform on which trainers and gyms could plug themselves into, and then the platform's job was to get as many eyeballs and people as humanly possible into this funnel for them to then kind of pull out of and say, do you want more than this generalized at-home, non-specific program that you can get via the internet?
That's
pyramid.
What I think.
It's like a pyramid scheme, Pat.
Yeah.
Did we just come up with a pyramid scheme?
Yeah, it's an MLM scheme.
Multi-level marketing. Yes.
So that's this is kind of like the practical application of the age-old conversation in CrossFit, which is like, well, I can only get this big, right? In the walls of my affiliate, my brick and mortar. But then we have to, if you reverse engineer that and say, okay, there's 30 CrossFit gyms in Virginia Beach arbitrarily, and there's whatever, I forget what it is, it's something to the tune of 1 million people. And let's say, what if we, without even talking about market saturation, just 1%, what if we could do 1% and spread that across all the affiliates? Everybody would be totally happy. The problem with that is there was no means to cast a big enough net to where 1% would be meaningful to anybody. And this is kind of how you start to at least have the conversation or answer the question, what's in it for me as the affiliate owners? Because that's what everybody wants to know. Okay, cool. The app is great. What's in it for me? Like, how does this help me? And I think if you look at it through that lens of like, okay, at scale, if I can pull 0.5% in my local area that's getting blanketed with this information, well, that's more business than you would probably ever get in a lifetime if you try to do it by yourself.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that there's, I think there is certainly now, and I think there will continue to be the question of, is it worth the value? Is it worth being affiliate? Is it worth the whatever I pay for being a CrossFit affiliate to put it on the wall? And I think that we're coming out of perhaps the point where that question was actually the hardest to answer in the affirmative. I worked with a number of gyms. One of them, I found myself in the midst of this, right? We were like a week after this, we were still like really hot and heavy and nobody knew what the hell was going to go on. I found myself giving the advice that like, yeah, maybe it doesn't make sense for you to call yourself and be an affiliate anymore. And I was like, a month ago, I would never have thought that that would have come out of my mouth, that it would have made at least as much sense to not be as it did to be an affiliate. But I think coming out of this, I think that our collective memories are very short. I think that, if we speak just specifically or think just specifically about the tweet and the fallout from the tweet and all that, I think likely it didn't really burst too far out of the bubble of us, right? I think we talked about it a lot, but I'm not sure that anybody cared. And I certainly don't think a lot of people remember or will remember it. And so
I talked to people in Europe who were just kind of like, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, our staff from the other countries were like, what's happening?
Yeah. And so I think we're back to the place where, yes, it is still a little bit of a question as to the value of it. But I think it's always important to remember that it's more meaningful or it's more valuable to be a meaningful specific than a wandering generality. And every gym out there that is doing some kind of version of CrossFit, but not calling themselves CrossFit, is by virtue of that a generality, because they're not allowed to say, I know you're looking for this specific thing and that's what I have. And for as long as people are searching, looking for, and using the name CrossFit, it makes sense to, if that's what you're doing, to say that's what we have here, because that's what every brand, that's what every marketer wants. They want to find the people who are literally raising their hand and saying, I would like to eat pizza. And it's like a restaurant who serves pizza saying, oh, we have food.
We're Italian.
We're in Italian. Yeah, we have Italian.
We have these circular pies.
Yeah. Well, all these people are walking around saying, I'd love some pizza. And they're like, well, yeah, we could feed you. And so as long as there are people raising their hands and saying, yeah, I'd love some pizza, it makes sense for you to put on the wall that we're a pizza shop. And I think to me, that's still where we're at. And it doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean, like I said before, it doesn't mean that we're not still having to wrestle with the perception of, do I have to be Katrin before I get to start at your gym? But that's where branding comes in. That's where marketing comes in. That's where a good website comes in. That's where word of mouth comes in. It's not an insurmountable hurdle. It is a hurdle, but done well and done with some intention and done on purpose, it's a hurdle you can get over.
Particularly with somebody who's leading the way, who understands it, right? So imagine getting a lot of the benefit of the franchise model, but not necessarily being in a franchise, right? If you have somebody leading the way that's like, hey, these are the qualities and quantifiable metrics that would be an effective website, right? This is what good digital marketing, this is what good content creation looks like. And I think CrossFit's been doing a lot of good content creation. The breakdown was in the communication of how to do that.
Yep.
For 100%. Me personally, as CrossFit Rife or wherever.
And also, it raises this interesting question, which is, prior to now, who has been CrossFit's customer? And I swear to you, I'm not sure what the answer is to that.
I don't know what it is. And
because of that, I'm not sure what the point of it all was. What were you trying to, because all marketing is the process by which you get somebody to make the change you want to make. Right. And so all of the money they spent on media, all the money they spend on the games, all the efforts they spend on advocacy and health, toward what aim other than Greg being more right to more people? Mm-hmm. And I honestly, I don't know if you had to say, who's the every business. And that's kind of why I go back to the idea of it was never set up to be a business. It was set up to be an argument, because that's the only way you can do that without having a customer. Right. And I think they stumbled their way into this affiliate model, which was literally, by Greg's own admission, customers coming to him and saying, can I please give you money? Mm-hmm.
TJ reached out to him,
that's great. That's nice, but that's not really how a person sets up a business or builds a brand. And so it's just, I think that's part of what this conversation is about, is going forward, who's the customer? And that should dictate almost all of the decisions to a large degree, or at least a good part of the decisions.
No, I agree. I think and that's a great place to kind of wrap things up right there. That's something we have to think about. And I think, obviously your expertise in branding, Patrick, you probably have many boxes, take the hero's journey, mm-hmm. or, and figure out who they are marketing to. Yep. Because and what you said about affiliates, it's what was your term that you said? It's better to be meaningful and unique.
Yeah. Meaningful, specific than a wandering generality.
Yeah. And I think even for a lot of affiliates that throw the name CrossFit on there, they are still a wandering generality. They have CrossFit, they have, and there's nothing wrong with diversifying what you offer.
Yeah. It's not about that. It's about recognizing that you have to do it on purpose, and that there was a very short window of time in which you could be a CrossFit affiliate, and that was specific enough, but it is not anymore. You have to go further. You have to do more. You have to try harder. You have to ask yourself questions, because it's not enough to just be a CrossFit affiliate anymore. And that's kind of why, that's part of why I'm really excited about what's going forward, is if we can make the pie bigger, what we're actually doing, one of the downstream effects, I think, will be that we have all of these really unique, beautifully conceived affiliates that are focused on 200 specific people, right? Not, God, I just hope I get 150 people within driving distance of me to pay attention. But instead, okay, well, I know that there are 4 other gyms around me, and I know that one's really focused on competitors or young athletes or whatever. Cool. I'm going to let them have it. I'm going to let them have those people. I'm going to focus on 65 plus, right? You could build a thriving community of 65 plus athletes if you wanted to. And the only reason that nobody does it is because they're scared to be that specific. But I'm telling you, you can be that specific and be that successful, because what happens when you're specific is you get to talk to the people specifically. You get to say, literally on your website, Do you want to play? Do you want to be around longer to play with your grandkids? You don't get to do that unless you're focused on 65 plus or whatever, 55 plus.
Well,
right?
And then every decision you make going forward,
every decision you make,
you have a clear path there. Like,
yep.
all right, do we need to buy this, fancy
Yep.
new barbell?
That's right.
No, we probably need a reverse hyper to help
Yep.
with lower back
And
pain.
what further education do our coaches get? Where do we go? Like, what resources? What do we need? What do we have? What do we not have? Where are the places that we can go to find more of the right people for us? Right. And I just keep using 65 plus because that's kind of an easy, obvious one. But then you get to know that every week my job is to call 5, nursing homes or family medical centers or whatever.
Yeah, that 65 plus could be stay-at-home moms. It could be,
100%.
like you mentioned, the competitors. It could be a teenage program. It could be law enforcement. I mean, yeah. And then, the old kind of adage of you need 100 members and you're just kind of chasing everybody.
Yeah.
You're right. Like the front-facing marketing of your website is all old people,
Because ultimately what the biggest hurdle of a CrossFit gym is, we can go back to the games, the barriers, the perceptions. The biggest hurdle is the misguided but very real belief in most people's minds that I don't belong there. And the reason is because we haven't done a good enough job on an affiliate level to show them that actually we're built for you. It's not that it's not like, oh, we'll take care of you. Don't worry. We're okay with this. But this place exists for you. That's the challenge. And that's the thing that I think Eric or not, Greg or not, that's still the biggest challenge over the long run, over the next 10 years for affiliates. If we want to see not 15,000, but 150,000 affiliates, it's recognizing that specificity matters and that building your gym with empathy is the most important thing you can do.
I see a refrigerator not lined with Fit Aid, but prune juice.
Yes.
That's what I would do. I'd have just prune juices and like Metamucils and those types of things, like adult diapers.
Full, all the locker rooms they have Ben Gay in all the locker rooms.
I know we want to wrap up, but just last thing that popped into my head is Nike, when they started in the late 80s to early 90s, Nike was, they dropped from like the #1 shoe apparel brand to like #3, like Reebok took over, ironically enough. And one of the things that they did, and this is actually the biggest thing that I think HQ needs to do, and we all need to kind of be thinking about, is the thing that they did is they widened the access point to Nike. And so instead, before, Nike was all about athletes. They were all about high performance. They were all about the details of the shoe and the this, that, and the other thing, and the 400-meter mile. And what they did to widen the access point was, we all know it now, this Just Do It campaign, right? The idea being, you don't have to be a perfect athlete to act like an athlete. You don't have to be a professional athlete to think like an athlete. And one of the first ads that they did in the Just Do It campaign was, I don't remember his name, but it's Walter something, 80-year-old guy in San Francisco. And the ad was video of him running down the streets with his shirt off, talking about running, I think it was like 17 miles a day. Like, this is real person. They were just kind of like a little 1-minute snapshot. And the reason I just thought of it, Jay, is because and again, I'm going to butcher it. But the line at the end, or the kind of the joke or the tagline at the end, was like, people always ask me what I do with my teeth. And the last line of the commercial was like, I leave them at home. Right? And that's how they welcomed, that's how they widened the access point. That's how they said, Nike is for all of us. It's not about a demographic. It's not about a specific sport or being an athlete. It's what's called a psychographic. It's this idea of, if you think like we do, if you think like an athlete, Nike is for you. And I think it's the same thing that CrossFit HQ has to do, is they've got to figure out, and it's not that we don't know it, but they have to start messaging and articulating and branding and marketing this notion of, this is for everybody, right? This isn't just for the CrossFit Games athletes. It's for your grandmother. And starting to really figure out how to do that well, not so that they're two different silos, but that it's one silo and it's one message, and it goes out to everybody the same way.
Yeah, that's really well said, Patrick. I think a great place to we can obviously go deeper into all of these questions, which we'd
Yeah.
like to in the future. But let's let everybody, we know you have your podcast, you have
Yep.
Chasing Excellence, you have Open Gym, and you have the Consistency Project. And if someone just wants to find you to learn more about you or potentially work with you for branding, where can they find you?
Functionalbranding.com is the branding stuff. Instagram, PS Cummings is probably the easiest place to kind of get to everything.
Very cool. Fern, we good there?
We're good, man. Let's just set up that round table. I'm excited about that.
Let's
now.
do it.
Yeah, Fern, you said you were going to do that? You said
Yeah.
taking...
Listen, because we're phasing you out. Yeah.
That's smart.
You don't own an affiliate. You don't own an affiliate anymore. You don't train. You don't do anything. So
you're just on a Peloton all day.
Yeah, it is.
Peloton,
so
and
we need somebody who has something meaning. We need somebody that's something meaningful to say.
Last question, and then we'll wrap it.
Yeah.
Who name 3 people you'd want on that round table, Patrick?
Oh man, that's a great one. I'd have to say Ben Bergeron. It's not an affiliate. She has a couple gyms in Australia, and I interviewed her on Open Gym. Her name is Narita Bint. She blew me away. She's running her gym is women's only, and it's thriving. She's got like 2 or 3 spaces. I just think she's got her shit together, and I was really, really blown away by what she's doing. So I'd add her to it just to give some nice diversity, both in terms of like focus and geographical. And then a third would be, good question. I would try to find somebody doing something in either the nonprofit or the nonprofit adjacent space, trying to do something who is, somebody along the lines of, I think they're called the Green Beret something or other.
Yeah, the Green Beret Project.
Yeah, Green Beret Project, or Steve's Club, where I just had a really good conversation for Open Gym with a guy named Ben Davis, who's doing something, a gym called Noble Clay. So I think maybe I'd try to find somebody who's doing something really interesting in that space, because I think that would add some really a different perspective on that conversation.
Who is it? Well, Eric Preston just sent us that the other day or last week sometime.
Is that what he sent us?
Yeah, the Green Beret Project. Yeah.
I stumbled across them with Nicole Coyne, who runs HSN.
She'd be good to have on as well. Actually,
she's a stud as well. Yep.
Yeah.
And man, I think we could construct an all-star collection of interesting and useful voices for something like a roundtable.
Well, it's on my to-do list now, so it's going to happen.
We do a little collab between Open Gym and Best Hour, and we can.
I think that'd be really good.
Publish.
Yeah, we'll make that happen. We'll be in touch with you off air.
Love it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Patrick. And again, if you guys,
my friends, I'm happy to talk anytime.
Yeah, if you're interested in finding Patrick, check him out on Instagram and check out his podcasts and wealth of knowledge. Thank you.
All the podcasts.
All the podcasts.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day.
Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't already, do us a favor, head over to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback for either Fern or myself, hit us up, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com, or send us a DM over on Instagram at Best Hour of Their Day. Once again, we couldn't do this without the amazing community, and you are a part of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting Best Hour of Their Day.